Mr. President, this motion is co-sponsored by Senator Binos Yero, Senator I.D. Kieng. Notes that police brutality in Nigeria can be traced to the colonial era when force was mainly used to suppress dissent against colonial rules, force the people to obey draconian policies, and thwart protests against colonial repression. The Senate further notes that some of the documented police brutalities in Nigeria during the colonial era are the killing of 21 miners and wounding of 51 workers during the Enugu Colliery strike of 1949, suppression of the women's riot December 1929 to January 1930 in the eastern parts of the country, which led to the death of 55 women and serious injury to more than 50 others, and the quelling of the Tiv riot of 1960, where 19 civilians were allegedly killed and 83 injured. Aware that despite the constitutional provisions establishing the police force based on Section 2141 of the 1979 and 99 constitutions, police brutality continued during the post-colonial era. The police was used as an instrument of oppression by politicians in the First and Second Republics in order to harass the oppression to keep themselves in power. During military rule, the police was used to suppress popular protests and agitations against military dictatorship. Further aware that the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS, was created in 1992 as a unit of the Nigerian police force to deal with crimes such as robbery, motor vehicle theft, kidnapping, amongst others. Concerned that in June 2020, Amnesty International, in a report, Time to End Impunity, documented that between January 2017 and May 2020, there were 82 cases of torture, ill treatment, and extrajudicial killings of Nigerian citizens by the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, SARS. Further concerned that the latest #EndSARS protest, which has assumed a global dimension, began on the 3rd of October 2020, when the video of a SARS officer who allegedly shot a young Nigerian in Nuheli, Delta State, surfaced online. Worried that despite the disbandment of SARS unit by the Inspector General of Police, Mohamedou Adamu, and the promise of implementing the demands of the protesters towards reforming the police and ending brutality, the address by President Muhammadu Buhari on October 10, 2020, and the appeal of the Senate President, distinguished Senator Ahmad Lawan, to the protesters, the protests have increased in intensity and violence, with socio-economic activities paralyzed across Nigeria, with some compatriots allegedly losing their lives in the ensuing melee. Further worried that the protests have now grown beyond the initial agitation to #EndSARS and #End Police Brutality, to include the demands for good governance, accountability of government, reforms of key governmental institutions like INEC, judiciary, health, power, amongst others, and accepts that as political leaders, we must take responsibility of protecting, providing succor, and guiding our youth. We therefore must address the issues of placing appropriate policies that ensure economic growth, wealth creation, and employment generation, and put them on the front burner. The Senate accordingly resolves to: 1. Urge all tiers of government to put in place and sustain policies and programs of socio-economic reforms that raise the standard and quality of life of our people, particularly youths who are the leaders of our tomorrow. Call upon the police and other security agencies to operate strictly in accordance with the rules of engagement appropriate to a democratic environment, that abjures the use of aggressive and brutal force against peaceful protesters. 3. Urge the Inspector General of Police to ensure a holistic, comprehensive reforms of the police to include the overhaul of welfare. The barracks are in very bad shape. They must be up to living standards, modern living standards. Training and medical insurance of all members of the Nigerian police force. Appeal to all Nigerians to resort to use of legal and institutional channels of resolving conflicts and disputes instead of misusing security agencies to secure undue advantages. Urge the Nigerian youths and Nigerian citizens to approach the National Assembly committees on constitutional reforms and other committees, relevant committees, in order to secure far-reaching, holistic amendments that are vital to the restructuring and reshaping of our federation to make it an inclusive and viable polity. 6. Urge the federal government to faithfully and comprehensively implement all the 5 demands of the NSAS movement and protesters with necessary timelines to rekindle confidence in governance. 7. Appeal to NSAS movement and our protesters, our families out there, our youths, our children, to kindly, in the interest of everyone, suspend their actions and embrace genuine dialogue in order to give government time and space to meet with their demands. Mr. President, I so submit.
Thank you very much, Senator Ali. I urge all types of government to put in place and sustain policies and programs of socio-economic reforms that raise the standard and quality of life of our people, particularly youth who are leaders of tomorrow. Those in favor of prayer 1 say aye. Those against say nay. Prayer 2, call upon the police and other security agencies to operate strictly in accordance with the rules of engagement appropriate to a democratic environment that abjures the use of aggressive and brutal force against peaceful protesters. Those in support of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 3, urge the Inspector General of Police to ensure a holistic, comprehensive reforms of the police to include the overhaul of the welfare, training, and medical insurance of all members of the Nigeria Police Force. Those in favor of prayer 3 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 4, appeal to all Nigerians to resort to use of legal and institutional channels of resolving conflicts and disputes instead of misusing security agencies to secure undue advantages. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 5, urge the Nigerian youth and the Nigerian citizens to approach the National Assembly committees on constitutional reforms in order to secure far-reaching and holistic amendments that are vital to the restructuring and reshaping of federation to make it an inclusive and viable polity. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Prayer 6, urge the federal government to faithfully and comprehensively implement all the 5 demands of the NSAS movement and protesters with necessary timelines to rekindle confidence in government. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. And prayer 7, appeal to the NSAS movement and protesters to suspend their actions and embrace genuine dialogue in order to give the government the time and space to meet their demands. Amendment, Senator Barrow Jibrin.
Urge them to stop, not to suspend. I so move.
Any seconder? Senator Gobir.
Second that it should be stopped rather than being suspended.
Okay, those in favor of prayer 7 as amended say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Well, distinguished colleagues, not amendment. It has to be additional prayer. Okay, additional prayer. Senator Ali Mekena.
Urge Mr. President to address the nation as soon as possible on this issue.
Any seconder? Senator Oluremi Tinubu.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I support the prayer that the president, the additional prayer that the president should address the nation as soon as possible.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the additional prayer, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Well, thank you very much, distinguished colleagues. Additional prayer. Okay, Senator Yusuf.
The additional prayer is police should make it a duty to our
colleagues for the various interventions. And let me particularly thank Senator Abiodun Olujimi for this very timely and germane motion. And of course, all of us who are co-sponsors, the rest of us 108 as co-sponsors, this point has been made over and over again. Now the Senate as an institution has taken a position. Government should implement those demands of the protesters that it has accepted. Protesters, you have made your point, you have made your case, your protests have yielded the desired results. It is time to allow the government to implement those issues that government has accepted from you. So with this, we want to urge Nigerians to go on their lawful businesses without let and hindrance. There are a lot of rooms, a lot of avenues through which such reforms could be made. And of course, our Committee on Constitution Review is there, and thank God they have just started their work. Protests like this, sometimes they are wake-up calls, but I think they wake us up not to only look at the issues raised or the demands made, but even to contemplate on issues that have not been raised, but they are fundamental and they are so important and imperative in our lives as a country and as citizens. And therefore, I will urge the National Assembly to work with the executive arm of government to look deeper and further into issues that are really critical for the development of our youth, but have not been included in the demands by our youth. Because this is so important for us so that we don't have to go back and forth. We had demonstrations, or we are having demonstrations today because of NSAS. What are those things, apart from NSAS, that really make life a little bit difficult and tough for our youth particularly? We should address them, and we should do that without being told by anybody. With this, I want to once again congratulate the Senate for this motion. Leader of the Senate. Point of order, Senator James.